Okay, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, we're past 5:30, so I'd like to open today's meeting, and firstly I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we meet on today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. My next duty is to let everyone know in the room that this meeting is being live streamed in accordance with Hilltops Council live streaming policy. What that means is that when any speakers in open forum or anyone in the chamber, your voice will be recorded and it's going out live to the public, so everyone needs to keep that in mind. The emergency exit procedure is out the door on our left, to the door again on the left, and out in the grass area waiting further instructions. The next item on the agenda is public forum, and we have some speakers in public forum in regard to item 18268, the Galong limestone mine, increased dispatch. Now there's a speaker, I would presume for, that being the first gentleman, and then there's 3 listed people to speak, I presume against it, which will be fine. Normally you would have 1 or 2 representatives speak on this matter, but I understand that people have travelled to be and speak on this matter, so everyone will be granted their 5 minutes that I've got here in front of me to speak at my discretion. So we'll start with that, and the first one on the list is representative from Sibelco, Don Cheong. Thank you. But you can watch it.
Before I formally start, I have a few queries just before about potential rumours about the sale of Sibelco. I just wanted to clarify that no sale has happened as we speak. We are exploring buyer interest, and that's something that we do strategically continuously, but no decisions have been made at this stage.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Donald Cheong. I'm the Environment Manager Australia for Sibelco, and I wish to speak in support of Sibelco's application to Council to increase dispatch from our Galong operations. Our application is an opportunity to enable Sibelco's business to grow. It's also an opportunity to support the local agriculture industry and to ensure the amenity of your local community is looked after. I would like to invite you all as councillors to consider the merits of our application. How does our proposal contribute to your local community? And as decision makers, determine the best outcome for the people and businesses you represent in the Hilltop Shire. As highlighted in our application, the existing dispatch limit from our Galong operations is simply insufficient to meet the market demand. Earlier this year, my colleague Glenn Best and a few of our customers spoke with councillors about this need for increased dispatch due to a substantial and previously unforeseen increase in demand for Sibelco products. There's been an unprecedented increase, 25% year-on-year increase in regional demand for Aglong. At the same time, our competitor operations, they've had reduced production, and in some cases they've closed. So those 2 factors have created this situation, and Council was expressed in the workshop earlier this year from their direct experience and understanding of the situation where this supply is not meeting the demand. Therefore, the application before you this evening seeks Council approval to increase the annual limit on a dispatch of 320,000 tonnes per year to 430,000 tonnes per year. upon Council's completion of the upgrade works to GALONG Road, north of Bindle Road. The application proposes a long-term solution to reduce dispatch via the GALONG Township to 200,000 tonnes per year, and having 220,000 tonnes per year being dispatched via the upgraded GALONG Road once Council's works are complete, which are expected in late 2019. What will this bring to the Hilltops Shire? It will bring reduced amenity impacts to the GALONG Township. It will bring improved road infrastructure for the benefit of all road users. And it will bring a local supply of affordable ag lime fertiliser to local farmers. And what does our proposal mean in terms of employment and economic contributions? It will mean increased direct employment of approximately 12 full-time equivalent jobs. It will mean $2.2 million of wages per year being retained and spent within the local economy. And it will mean a continuation of Sibelco's expenditure on goods and services with local businesses. So we're talking earthworks contractors, electrical services, truck haulage, accommodation.
You've got a minute, Don.
Okay, thank you. And in the last year, Sibelco has spent $2.5 million with these local businesses. Of course, this is not to say that there are no downsides to our proposal. There will be impacts for the local residents along GALONG Road due to the increased truck movements. There are safety concerns relating to truck movements at the Burley Griffin Way intersection. And there will be increased wear and tear on public roads. As detailed in our application, Sibelco is committed to ensuring that these impacts are properly managed and minimised. Sibelco acquired GALONG Quarry in 2012, and we are proud of our operational track record. Over the past 5 years, we have demonstrated how we responsibly manage our impacts. We've actively managed truck driver behaviour, reducing community complaints and community concerns. We have completed property treatment works at all but one residence along the GALONG Township truck haulage route to reduce noise from truck movements. And we've made substantial progress on upgrade works to the Burley Griffin Way intersection, including engineering design.
You better wind it up, please, Don. Your time's well and truly up, mate. Thank you.
In summary, there is a strong need for increased dispatch from the Sibelco GALONG operation, with benefits for Hilltops Shire outweighing the impacts. In closing, I would like to finish on a more personal note. I started working at Sibelco the same year the GALONG site was purchased. I was there when Sibelco moved into the nation, and over the last 5 years, I have seen positive relationships develop with the community, with council, industry, and I have observed the dramatic reduction in community complaints and Sibelco's follow through on its commitments.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. Second speaker tonight is Mrs. Flannery in relation to the same item, 18268. And just before you speak, Mrs. Flannery, I note on some material you handed out that I collected about speaking open forum that you've listed 18276 item to speak to as well. That item will be sought to be deferred tonight, so there will be no need to speak to that item in your presentation because that item will be deferred. 18276. The vegetation removal one. Councillor Tuckerman.
Is there any opportunity to ask questions of Sibelco presenter?
I believe some provision is there. Sorry, to ask questions. Yes.
Is it possible? Or?
Yes, it is.
Just a couple of questions in regards to the presentation by Mr. Zhong. In regards to his noting that there was all but one improvement made on the houses in GALONG, I'm just wondering why that last house wasn't improved?
There has been a bit of toing and froing. So we've been discussing potential acquisition of the property. We've had it valued. We're now at the stage where we've agreed on the way forward, and we're seeking approval from the owner for the scope of works, so then we can then proceed with the works.
And in regards to the other impacts, and you talk about safety concerns, wear and tear on roads, how will you be addressing those concerns?
Good question. The other parts I chopped out of my presentation. So with the safety, I was mainly talking about the Burlington Way and the concerns about that intersection. So we've progressed the engineering design for the upgrade of that intersection. We've done consultation with Roads and Maritime Services, RMS. We've conducted a competitive tender process to select, and we've selected a preferred contractor who will then be able to commence the works. In terms of wear and tear on roads, as the councillors are probably aware, Sibelco makes annual contributions under a voluntary planning agreement. So for every tonne dispatched from site, we pay a contribution. So that contribution, if the increase is approved, that will equate to about $83,000 per year in additional contribution, which can be put towards road maintenance or towards other community projects of interest or concern.
And just one last question, Mr Mayor, if I can have your indulgence. When you talk about there'll be an increased supply of ag lime and that will be made available to farmers, what's the guarantee that there's obviously two sorts of limes, I believe, quick lime and ag lime?
Yes.
So what's the guarantee that there will be sufficient supply for our farmers?
So there's, in terms of availability of the product, there's plenty of availability of.
So basically what you're saying is there won't be any allocated tonnage available for farmers?
So if the increase in dispatch, if the increase is approved, that will enable us to supply to the demand based on our forecast, and that's how we've come up with the 430,000 proposal or application.
Yeah.
That's what we expect to be the demand.
But no guarantee that there'll be an allocated tonnage?
No, not at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Horton, you got a question?
Yes, I have a question, Mr Mayor. Is this working? That's it, thank you. To the Sibelco gentleman, as we know, Sibelco is a Belgium-owned company, has mining interests all around the world, and as I understand it, the GALONG mines is the most profitable of all those operations. Now, you say that it's for sale. I haven't seen it advertised anywhere for sale, and as I said, the profits from GALONG go overseas, and if it's the most profitable, why would they want to sell it? That's my question. Has it been advertised, and why would they want to sell it? Thank you.
So it's not for sale per se. So we're always strategically exploring opportunities, potential buyers. So it hasn't been put, on sale, advertised. And in terms of, yes, GALONG is very profitable. And in terms of sale, there are lots of reasons for sale. Sometimes it may be the business is not performing well. Sometimes it may be strategically the company wants to focus on a particular area of the business and not other areas, so then they sell that part. But yeah, it's definitely very profitable.
Thank you very much for your response to that. We'll move on. Could all phones please be turned off?
Good evening. My name is Gail Flannery. I've lived in this area for over 50 years, and the Flannery family have farmed in this area for well over 100 years. I'm speaking on 18268.
That's right.
And I thank the Mayor and the Councillors for the opportunity to speak on this matter. I reserve my right to refer this matter to the Office of Local Government as well as to take action in the Land and Environment Court should Council approve this application. Council should be referring this application to other council for a consideration. The Hilltops Council is a significant customer of Sabilco through its purchase of road base, probably the largest single customer. Council has a clear conflict of interest with respect to this matter, particularly as it has supplies stopped in previous years due to the tonnage limit. I ask, is Council able to access road base now when other customers have been refused access until the new tonnage quote rolls over in December? So surely this is preferential treatment. There are serious questions which need answering regarding this matter. Why did Council lodge applications for grant funding without consultation with any of the landowners, of which I'm one, on the GALONG Road? Not one single landowner was consulted that I'm aware of. Clearly, Sabilco were a party to the application as they have offered to provide road base and cash to the project. In a total lack of due process, Sabilco are not party to the GALONG Road work as they have very cleverly lodged their DA to use the road after Council upgrades the road. We now have a situation where a quiet country road is about to be ruined for the benefit of one party, and they are not responsible for any of the associated damage which may occur at this time, circumventing the usual process of the GALONG Road being part of the DA, therefore having to do an environmental impact study. No amount of road widening will make this quiet country road, which it is, and is frequently, more frequently than anyone will know, used for stock moves, completely unsafe if this road is allowed to have heavy haulage trucks on it. The report doesn't indicate if there have been an independent study to access whether the grant funding will add, as you've just mentioned now, the cost of bringing the road up to HML standard. Should the funds be insufficient, it's likely the extent of the work will be reduced, leaving the road vulnerability to early degradation. Will an independent assessment occur after the money is spent to determine if the work is truly HML standard? I doubt it very much. As an estimated cost of $7 million for the upgrade work and a stated 20-year life, the annual depreciation is $350,000. Will Council seek this amount annually from Sabilco for maintenance on the road? If not, who is going to pay for it? Can Council afford to pay for such a bill? With regard to recommendations, why should landowners be forced to notify the mine every time stock movements are to be occurred? How absurd that Council should seek to impose such a recommendation for the landowners. Why should landowners be requested to move the position of the gateways, again for the convenience of the mine and the truck drivers? If you read the report, there's no recommendation for Sabilco to pay for any such imposition. How can I safely move sheep from where I live at Goonawarra on the Cunningar Road down to my property on Cashelmara on the GALONG Road without the fear of an accident? The road verge is just not wide enough for trucks, who rarely drive slowly. It's never been designed for anything else but a back country road, if not almost a lane. Once it becomes a thoroughfare, the trucks will believe they have the right of way. Council should again vote against this increase in dispatch and send it off to be properly evaluated by an independent authority. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs Flannery. No questions, councillors, to the Speaker? Okay, thank you. The next speaker I have on the same item 18268 is Julie Henderson.
Good evening. My name is Julie Henderson. I come from GALONG village.
Need to use the microphone.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the GALONG lime mine issue. The extra allocation of 110,000 tonnes per year. There are 4 parties: the Subalco lime mine, the GALONG village community, the routes north, Calangan Road and GALONG Road, both farm communities, and the Hilltops Council. I acknowledge that the Subalco mine provides jobs, fulfills product orders for customers, controls as best they can trucking transport, and contributes to council coffers and a generous social responsibility program while keeping up communications with all parties. Up until now, GALONG Village has had to carry all risks of burdens, inconveniences and unfulfilled promises. We now have a solution in scenario 2 of the DA application, the upgrading of GALONG Road North through the farming areas. I believe 80% of orders for the lime product are for the northern areas. Under scenario 2, lime will be dispatched from Subalco mine, 200,000 tonne GALONG Village, 220,000 tonne via GALONG Road North and 10,000 tonne via Calangan Road. A grant, I believe, of 5 million is available through the Hilltops Council and another million coming from Subalco for the upgrade of GALONG Road North. This is a good and fair outcome, a shared responsibility, rather than GALONG Village burdened forever with increasing lime tonnage applications. A shared community response to a community problem. What concerns me is past behaviour by the council and the mine, namely the bypass road around GALONG that never eventuated after years of negotiation. The mine was sold to Subalco, and their legal officials didn't notice the contract to build the bypass road, and no one pointed it out to them. Then the dangerous corner of Burley Griffin Highway, Boyo Road and Limestone Way, which from June 2015 has been promised an upgrade by council but never eventuated. This past behaviour by Subalco and the council leaves me wondering if at some stage it is realised that the 6 million isn't enough to upgrade GALONG Road. So again, GALONG Village would have to shoulder the whole tonnage. I asked the council, is there enough money to build the GALONG Road North? And what is the commencing and completion dates of the project if the DA application for the extra tonnage line is passed by the council? If the community of GALONG Village is made to carry the whole tonnage, you'll burden the people of GALONG Village with more suffering. They already suffer enough. In my street of 14 houses, there are 4 cases of cancer. 3 are blood cancers. In the centre of GALONG, there is 3 cases of cancer. 2 are blood cancers. Last year, my dear friend Stephen and
Thank you.
Any questions?
No questions, thank you. The next speaker and final speaker on item 18268. I have 2 names here. John Flannery. Thank you, John.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I make this submission on behalf of my family's interests and interests of the residents of the GALONG Road. It takes about 7 minutes to present if I don't stutter too much. I hope you can bear with me. All 23 residents of the road have signed a petition objecting to heavy haulage on the GALONG Road, and I have the petition here if anyone's interested in looking at it. Many couldn't make the meeting because of short notice. I was only got my notice this morning. The Corporans, the Wyres, Whalens, Flannerys and the Redemptorist Fathers, Woodheads, have resided on the Galong Road for over 100 years. Yet the council ignores their existence. No consultancy or consideration has been given to the residents who have established businesses and lifestyles which are going to be jeopardised. It is a minor council road, never intended for heavy haulage. Major government roads are designed for that purpose, and that's where the trucks should stay. I have mentioned no notice was given of this meeting until today. I'll point out that there's approximately 12k frontage to the Galong Road, which is 16 k's long, so we have a fair percentage of frontage. And we use it extensively to travel stock to a central woolshed and yards. John Horton is the only councillor interested enough in looking at our concerns, and I appreciate that. We often have stock on the road almost every day of the week for up to 4 hours. I have read the two council reports, which I'd suggest are long-winded and very biased towards Sabilco. Very little time addressing the major issues. The writer will have very little understanding of the major issue, which is safety. It is my opinion, along with others on the Galong Road, that a gift of $1 million to the council has influenced their decision. In the report, issues I believe that haven't been addressed. I still wonder how can the council be sure they can upgrade a road to be fit for purpose if they don't know if they have enough funds to do the upgrade. I live in the road and it is obvious the process of costing is still going on. If the consent is given for heavy haulage to go onto the road and is not up to standard, it becomes a death trap and legal implications are associated. This issue alone should end the matter until the upgrade has been completed. The matter of safety is dealt with in one paragraph in the report under zone objectives, which states the aim to minimise conflict between industries. And the report concludes and suggests or recommends that there will be little or no conflict. The person who wrote that has no understanding of what happens when fast-moving trucks travel on busy stock routes. It's an accident waiting to happen. No amount of upgrading of the road is going to make it safe to put heavy haulage trucks on a busy stock route. The more trucks, the greater the risk. The writer of the report doesn't seem to understand the safety problem and certainly doesn't give a solution. The lack of understanding of safety issues takes away the credibility of the whole report and the recommendations. I'm told that it is proposed to knock down 900 trees in a superb in the course of constructing the road. This is outrageous, I believe. And I ask the question, has it been referred to the Office of the Environment and Heritage? In the reports, the council reports, matters I disagree with, and I particularly disagree with this one, that the DA submission is a modification. That's rubbish. I have an assessment from a consultant, SBM Planning, who is just as qualified as the council consultant, who wrote the report saying it is not a modification. Both are long-winded and biased. But if a little common sense is introduced, it must be acknowledged that to apply for permission to put heavy haulage on a council road that has never allowed it before is not substantially the same but completely new, therefore not a modification, it's a new DO. In clause 64 of the council report, it recommends that the landowners will have to notify Sabilco when they are putting stock on the road. That's once again ridiculous. Since when has the writer of the report become a lawmaker? The law quite clearly states that the drover has to display signs each 5 Ks in front and back of the stock. Once again, the lack of understanding of the writer and therefore their credibility doesn't have credibility. I would make the observation that we put signs out and they have little credibility also and will be ineffective in preventing accidents. It's stated by Sabilco tonight that the extra product will benefit the community. Some of them anyway, unless all the extra allocation of product is taken up by the production of quicklime, which is probably more profitable, and if it is, they'll certainly produce more quicklime, which will go straight to the coast, which will be little benefit to the community, certainly not to the farmers. You mentioned that the amount of product was diminishing. I disagree with that because Canowindra has just opened with a tonnage of 250,000 agricultural land.
Your 7 minutes is just about up, Mr. Flannery, if you wouldn't want to get close.
In a number of cases, Sabilco has failed to meet the commitments of previous VPAs and conditions of consent to provide previous DAs. These obligations must be met before any other DAs are considered. Council should also respect the legislation of the right to farm. We were here a long while ago, long before Sabilco, and shouldn't have our enterprise jeopardised. In conclusion, it would appear that a deal has already been done with Sabilco and that the road will be upgraded to suit Sabilco. Many ratepayers must wonder why their money is being spent on a quite adequate road when there are more deserving roads and bridges. Some would say the grant should be redirected. I would suggest that Sabilco are in the final stages of settling the mine and pressuring the council for the DA to enhance their sale. I appeal to the councillors to stand up for the farming community's rights rather than catering for the profit of a departing foreign company. Finally, I would say DA should not be considered until the road is completed and fit for purpose, and then it should be for limited access only. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Accept that apology. Councillor Flannery, seconded. Councillor Manchester, thank you. Could I have staff and members of the public be upstanding, please, for a moment's silence?
Mr Mayor, can I indulge you to also add Shane O'Leary?
Shane O'Leary.
Shane was a General Manager of Destination New South Wales and certainly a good friend of this council and a good friend to many around this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. We all share a moment's silence for the following: William Gleeson, Kenneth Dillon, Bradley Britt, Neil Miller, Juriel King, Betty Frost, John Watson, Marie Ryan, Marjorie Heath, Mary Batnick, Leslie Graham, Sister Mary Smythe, Tyler Pope, Joan Callaghan, Kay Emlyn, Jamie Graham, Isaac Patterson, Robert Binary, Margaret Nolan, Madge Stiles, Beth Grocott, Brian Nolan, Ian Murray, Norma Grazzini, Stanley Smith, Diane Boyd, Katie Phelps, Jean Pearsall and Shane O'Leary. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 6 on our agenda is the confirmation of minutes of the last council meeting. Moved Councillor Flannery, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? So be it, thank you. Item 7 is declaration of interest, councillors. Any declarations?
I have provided 2.
Councillor Flannery's provided 2.
268 and 18 withdrawn, now withdrawn, item 18.
276.
276, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. There's no others. Thank you. So we item number 8. We move on to a mayoral minute. Item 18256. Councillors, it's there. It's put up. It's in regard to Save Our Recycling campaign. In line with commentary made at Local Government New South Wales Conference and Country Mayors Association meetings that we've been to, and it's in regard, as the report states there, that they collect at local government level about $300 million from these levies, but only 18% of that money is handed back out to local government to try and address the issues we have. So what we're after is a bigger piece of the pie to be handed back, actually, to reinvest 100% of that money back into local government. So the report is there and the recommendations there. It's moved by Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Rolls. All those in favour? Thank you, so be it. Just move on to item 18257, the Mayor's report. There's a brief oversight of the Country Mayors Association meeting that I attended, and some of the major items that were spoke about: the drought relief, safe and secure water program, regional investment. One thing that I didn't have noted there was they spoke about the Southern Light and the project of Southern Lights to bring smart lighting into country New South Wales and the regions, and that's been worked on very closely, so that was also there. And then there's a list of my attendances to meetings, so I would ask that someone would like to move that report be noted and taken. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Seconded Councillor Flannery. All those in favour? Thank you.
Just one question, Mr Mayor, in regards to that report. I'm aware that Council has received some funding in regards to drought from the federal government, drought funding assistance. Was there an allocation made to Hilltops?
No, not that I'm aware of.
In line with all the other local government areas that received
No,
funding?
we were approached by the Deputy Prime Minister to send a second letter off. I'd already sent a letter off in regard to that funding that had been allocated to some councils, and I spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister's office, and he urged me to again make correspondence, which I did, and we received notification just recently that we were unsuccessful in gaining in the next round. I was told there will be another look before Santa Claus arrives in that funding, and to reapply and speak with him again in regard to that matter.
Thank you. I beg your pardon, I was misinformed. Thank you.
It's okay. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but we're still asking. Item 18258 is in regard to the waste to energy feasibility study that's been put there in front of you, councillors, with the report and the documentation that came from the Country Mayors Association and also the Tenafel Council that are working and trying to get this funding for a pilot program to see if we can address some issues with waste to energy. So the report basically says it all there, and the recommendation is there for councillors to let me know their feelings. Where we at? Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Rolls. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. I'll finish with the council's report, and then we'll move an item forward. But I'll deal with the next item, which is 18259, which is a report by Councillor Rolls, who attended the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference with us in Albury, and I'll pass over to Councillor Rolls to speak to her report if she likes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It was for me as a new councillor, it was a very informative conference to go to. I think I've just highlighted which some of the points that I thought were important for us to consider. There was a lot of discussion on many aspects. I think I've really concentrated on the aspects that had to do with amalgamation and also with the concerns that all regional councils have in employing experienced staff and attracting experienced staff. I'd like to think that Hilltops region at the next conference would be putting forward some motions so that we can show to New South Wales that we are a force and that we are maturing and that we also are aware of concerns and prepared to put them forward to the government. I'd also like to say that the second part, where I've put a little report on the workshop that I went to, was actually at Cowra, not part of the local government conference. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rolls, and thank you for doing that report on the local government conference and covering off the Mayor in the same time. It's much appreciated. So, Council, the recommendation's there to note and accept Councillor Rolls' report. Move that way, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Aye. So be it. Thank you. We'll just go around the table with councillors' reports and then we'll go back to the business. So I'll start with Councillor Horton. You've listed your meeting attendances there for everyone to read.
This is the report, activity report.
Yep.
I attended a Rural Lands and Study workshop in Mechanics Institute in Harden. Attended with Step Cook a check presentation at Coddington Park in Marlborough. We had a Kite Festival committee debrief, the committee people at the courthouse in Marlborough. Another day with Step Cook as she presented a cheque at Alfred Oval for Young. 3rd of November, the Lockton Regional Transport Working Group AGM and quarterly meeting in Temora that I attended, representing Hilltops on that committee. Kite Festival morning tea, thank you for volunteers in courthouse, at the courthouse in Marlborough. Very much appreciated by the volunteers and appreciated more by the committee. The Young Town Band recital at Town Hall Young, and that is a fantastic a band that we need council to get behind and support that. The main orchestra there, and the final number they played, there were 42 members in that orchestra, from people my age down to probably 12-year-old boys and girls, and I think it's fantastic, and I'd not heard of that until I joined the Hilltops Council, so I really support that. The Cultural, Community and Education Precinct Steering Committee, pushing along with the proposed site to build a library, etc., Education Precinct. 6th of November, Regional Economic Development Committee meeting at the Country Club in Harden. 7th of November, Agricultural Land Mapping meeting at Young Council offices. 8th of November, Councillors' Workshop discussing Sibelco at the Council Chambers in Young. 11th of November, Remembrance Day ceremony, laid a wreath on behalf of the Hilltops in Newson Park, Harden. And later on in the day, Remembrance Day ceremony at the Lighthorse Memorial in Marlborough, laid a wreath and gave a short address there. 12th of November, Rotunda meeting at Carrington Park, and it's great to think we've got $100,000 to do up the rotunda in that park, something that can be used. And with this terrific band, this band that we have, the Young Tourism Band or Regional Band, that can be utilised on a regular basis and get that park to be used. It's not used as much as people make out. 12th of November, the Kite Festival meeting debrief with council staff and council officers. And as you all know, that was a wonderful success. Over 8,000 people we had, and the committee had to be commended there. Hilltops Tourism Committee meeting at the St George Hotel at Jugiong on the 13th of November. 15th of November, Hilltops Water and Series Overview presentation and Council Chambers Young. And that's a real eye-opener. That the sewage systems and the water systems in the three major towns need urgent attention in some areas, and it's good to see that a strategic plan has been putting together to address those problems before they really happen. On the 17th of November, I attended a dinner, Bill the Bastard inaugural AGM and the celebration dinner with the Acting Prime Minister Michael McCall, MP Steph Cook in attendance at the Barnes Restaurant in Marlborough. About 60 people turned up to that, and it was a really fine evening. 18th of November, Young Regional School of Music Awards night and concert at the Town Hall in Young. And again, great to see all these young musicians giving them something to do other than play with computers and games and all the other rubbish. Playing their euphoniums and their trombones and their trumpets, and it's just wonderful to see. That's music seems to be really strong in the young area, and I think that's terrific. And on the 28th of November, the Hilltops Ordinary Meeting in Burra. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meeting, the Economic Development Committee and Business Community meeting at Harden. Millvale Community meeting with council staff at Millvale. Council's workshop regarding development matters. The Economic Development Committee workshop with PSA Consulting, the LEP review. Murrumbula Creek Development Stakeholder meeting, design consultants. Hilltops Asset workshop at Young. The LEP review working committee, and a number of meetings with constituents regarding council's customer service or their experience with the council's customer service.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
And meetings admin.
Councillor Rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my engagements are actually included, and I'd just like to mention the Remembrance Day celebration at Kurawatha, which was a delight to be at, including the lunch afterwards at the Kurawatha pub. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Just various workshops and probably less than 10% on the Horton Index.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Manchester.
The minuted meetings, the Wombat Progress Association's AGM, Remembrance Day service, the flood study meeting at Harden, and 2 Bill the Bastard meetings. And I'd also like to recommend a Wombat Progress member, June Gibson, for a Citizen Recognition Award. June's she's a bit over 80. She's been a hard worker at the Wombat Progress Committee for quite a number of years, and she has decided to retire, unfortunately. But she age has probably got the better of her. But she's been a hard worker there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Councillor Tuckerman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meetings as minuted, but I'd just like to make note of the Remembrance Day at Burra. I was delighted to represent yourself and Council at the Remembrance Day. And I'd also like to congratulate the committee, who did a lot of hard work and unveil a plaque with a number of names of people that had been involved in a number of the wars across, and they are now recognised on the War Memorial. So it's a wonderful tribute to those people that have served their country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The library workshop on the 5th of November, Wombat Progress Association meeting, the councillor workshop for Sibelco, the Regional Tourism Committee meeting in Jugiong, water and sewerage workshop, which was a real eye-opener for me. I just hadn't grasped anything of that significance. And this morning, the Murrumbidgee Local Health District meeting, showing us the plans for the new hospital development in Harden. And with Councillor Manchester, I've actually put June Gibson down for an award as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, meetings as minuted, and I'd just like to mention the Remembrance Day service at Maringo, where they launched a book on which was a great work by community members for the launch of that book.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Meetings as minuted, as well as the Murrumbula Creek consultation process and workshops and LEP meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. So I'd like to move that those reports be noted. Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Okay, councillors, given that item 18268 has been spoken about in open forum, public forum, I would ask that council indulge us in bringing that item forward. Moved Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. So be it. So we move, councillors, to Council plenary is removed as he's declared an interest. Item 18268. The report is presented to Council for determination as is stated and has been spoken to, and the recommendation is there in front of us.
Some questions for the Director.
Questions, Councillor Wallace? To the Director, please.
Councillor Horton, do a microphone.
You just turn that switch on.
A couple of matters that were raised by speakers. I would like the directors to speak to. One was the use by council of road-based product from the Sibelco mine, and the suggestion that this matter ought to be referred to another council because of the conflict. I was wondering if the director could speak to that.
Through the Mayor, I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. The infrastructure services actually purchase.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Sorry, the infrastructure services or the infrastructure department of council actually purchased that, so I don't have any knowledge of how much we actually purchase, and that's a deliberate separation of the regulatory role and operational role within council. Perhaps the Director of Infrastructure Services may be able to give some indication.
Can the Acting Director of Infrastructure shed some light on Councillor Wallace's question, please?
Through you, Mr. Give you any precise details of it. It's not an area that we actually purchase much material from. If we do, most of the material we purchase is from other quarries. The issue is really one of availability, and I think at the moment most of the material is normally used for their other activities.
Thank you.
I'd also like to question, there was another point raised by one of the speakers in relation to a $1 million gift to council. Could the staff please speak to that? From Sibelco, I assume.
Sorry.
Through the Mayor, certainly in the grant application, which is between two state government agencies around vehicle safety and fixing country roads, there was a contribution by Sibelco outlined in that grant application. My understanding that was an amount of $250,000 in cash and $750,000 in material. So certainly there was a contribution to that road construction project, and that grant application was approved sometime before the other matters being heard tonight.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for your indulgence with the questions.
That's okay.
One of the conditions of those applications is that the council needs to show the in-kind contribution or its own contribution as part of those applications, and in this particular case the contribution was being offered by Sibelco on this project rather than coming out of council funds themselves.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, given the responses or lack of responses to those questions, I've got some grave concerns about this matter. I think council staff may argue that they have separate departments and don't know what's going on, but I have a concern if one arm of council's buying product and then the other arm of council's assessing an application made by one of the major customers, and I don't know if the separation is adequate. I think council staff need to consider those potential conflicts, and the further one given the contract of Sibelco that's foreshadowed. And I would like to move that this matter be deferred for a report considering those matters with the view to referring it to another council.
Okay, councillors, and you've heard Councillor Wallace's comments there. My comments, and I concur with some of that. The only thing I'd point out to everyone who is in the room that the negotiations, if you like, and the understanding of what happened here happened before this council was formed. I would like to make that publicly known. However, it was done. Given Councillor Wallace's concerns there and his request for deferment, and I've had Councillor Horton say he'll second that. Have I got any speakers from any other councillors in regard to the matter?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'd like to speak against the recommendation.
You just spoke to defer the matter, but you seconded to defer it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you.
And
so not much, I'm sorry, Councillor Horton, there's not much good talking against the motion if we're seeking to defer the item. That's my point.
Okay, well, I'll take back that I seconded that motion. I'd like to speak against the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
But we haven't had it moved or seconded yet. That's the issue I have
Okay,
there.
all right. Well, I'll second
I'm
it.
sorry. So if you seconded the deferment motion?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Councillor Horton. So if there's any commentary in regard to deferring the matter, I'll take questions or queries. Councillor Armstrong, go. John, Councillor Horton, can you turn your...
My question goes to the nature required on Kalinga Road and Galong Road. I've managed to drive this piece of road. Thank you, Deirdre. This piece of road on the weekend, and whilst the road itself is appears to me to be in good condition, narrow at times, the vertical and horizontal alignments are perhaps, in my opinion, the most problematic aspects of the road. To me, it would seem that any widening of the road surface would improve the ability of traffic to move past each other, opposing traffic to move past each other, so as to reduce the risk that the current horizontal and vertical alignments would present. I'm a bit concerned that we've got a figure of $6 million to improve this road, but we don't really have any idea of what those improvements are going to be. And I think that deferral of this matter should be accompanied by a broad synopsis of the nature of the works that needs to be undertaken on the road. And I guess that's also for the benefit of the residents of the area, so that they are actually able to see what will be undertaken, and they'll be able to make their individual assessments as to whether those works will reduce the risk and certainly improve the issue of road safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, for your commentary. Could you turn your microphone? Councillor Walker.
Yes, I'd like to move along the lines of deferment as well, because to me, after thank you very much to those speakers, there's a lot of unanswered questions that have come up. The ones I've highlighted, along with the ones that Councillor Armstrong has already highlighted as far as vertical and horizontal alignment, was the bypass of Galong. I know in the report we saw some approaches to Gale, the Galong across the railway from memory, and other sharp bends. But as far as I asked the question then, why has it not been considered a bypass of Galong? And apparently it's been on the books but never finalised. The other thing was the report on impacts on the Galong Road, whether there is a conflict with present users against potential users. I haven't seen that adequately addressed. I haven't seen the cost analysis done, whether there's a fair enough contribution made to any upgrades. I also take on the point that I haven't seen environmental reports on any major roadworks, if major roadworks are required, but that report, along with what Councillor Armstrong said, that design has not been done, so I don't know how that can be commented on or even costed. They're just a few of the factors. I have about another 10 listed here, but they're amongst the major ones.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Is there any Councillor Tuckerman?
Yes, just a couple of questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to General Manager. So the threshold in regards to council dealing with DAs, I'm assuming that because it's only a modification, that is why we're seeing the DA. Is that correct? Sorry, it's me.
Yes. So, through the Chair, I would certainly refer to the Director of Sustainable Development to answer that question.
Thank you. Through the Chair, we're considering it as a modification based upon legal advice and precedent set by the Department of Planning. So that in the first instance, that's why it's coming before you as a modification. There are numerous precedents set by the Department of Planning where increase in dispatches is considered a modification. Secondly, the modification and dispatch from the mine itself doesn't have a value of development per se. It's the construction of the road that has a value which is separate to the application that Sibelco has applied for. So what Sibelco has applied for is actually an increase in dispatch. In answer to your question, what's the maximum that council can consider? It's without council involvement, it's $15 million. Where council is involved, it's $5 million. Anything over those amounts go to the JRPP or the Joint Regional Planning Panel, which is an independent body.
Yes, thank you. It's just a little confusing when the road is purported to be looking at being upgraded for nearly $7 million, and the conditions are based on that happening. It just doesn't seem to be right in my mind that it's something that is before council because of those issues. I'm really concerned, and I was certainly not going to vote in favour of the conditions. I'm very concerned that the road and the amount of money that's going to cost, that council will be actually short some $1.7 million to complete those works. And I don't even know whether thorough examination of the service level of that road in regards to the HML, whether that's actually sufficient to cover that. And there seems to be a big question over whether that actually would to make it safe. I have certainly lots of concerns around the safety issues in regard to that road, especially as to the topography that's involved. And I really do have some questions about who the ratepayers are going to be asked to contribute that extra funding if that DA was considered to be acceptable. And the other concern I have is that we currently have a DA in place that that hasn't been adhered to. And what's the guarantee that that's going to happen again? And we've just heard the proponent talking about the possible sale of the business, which also throws some conjecture in regards to any contribution that they're making to the road. There's actually no legal commitment from Sibelco to supply the council for that. So that's just my thoughts on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman.
Yeah.
Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We're talking a lot about the road, and I've travelled that road on a couple of occasions. Even if it's widened, it's still a dangerous road, as Councillor Armstrong has said. There are blind hills there. If you get big trucks thundering along there, they're definitely not safe. But I want to talk a bit about the people that live there. People who've lived there for 3 and 4 and 5 generations over 100 years and haven't even been consulted, as I understand, about the possible road going through there. Those roads were travelling stock reserves or travelling stock routes, and most of the property owners out there, the Flannery certainly, own land on each side of that road. And those roads are used to move stock, I would say, on a daily basis. Their way of life is just uprooted. I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages of what we're talking about, but the disadvantages in my book certainly outweigh the advantages. 23 residents groups have signed a petition against. Plenty of others probably haven't. We must listen to them. And I just think that, we're just going ahead, putting in, carting more stuff, rip up the roads, and people who've lived there for all these years in a beautiful setting, built their homes, made their life there, worked and produced wool, food, wheat, sheep and that for Australians to live on, and now we're just going to have these trucks going down there, and like they say, it's for sale. I don't probably think it is for sale. I think that's to frighten us to rush in to do it, but I don't know that. So I feel for the people that live out there, and I think we must give a lot of thought to that as well as the safety of the road. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. I think councillors would have to agree they've been pretty fair and equitable with our conversation in regard to this matter. Councillor O'Connor, your go.
Sorry,
I then
sorry.
cut one off. I'm sorry.
No. The two representations that the representations that I've had made to me in two particular areas are similar to what Councillor Tuckerman has said, and that is that the Burley Griffin upgrade needs to be done before we consider any modifications, because that's such a long-standing modification that hasn't been done, and the fact that there's actually some
commentary that was made in open forum that concerns me. It concerned me when it was spoken, and that going back to what Councillor Wallace might have started the conversation off with, that I would like to go back and have a look at when this arrangement was made for these funding partnerships. If people in the public are making assertions in live streaming that it could be construed other ways, I have grave concerns and I wish to put them to bed. As I said, this particular councillors around the room weren't there at the time, but I intend to make sure that the name of this council is kept where it should be, in high regard. So on that matter, we've had a mover and a second to have this matter deferred. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? So be it. Item 286 is deferred.
We just need to record the names.
That's unanimous.
Yeah, that's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Yes. Councillor Fleming?
The SYMPATHY one family can have.
Mr Mayor, can I ask a question, please, in regards to...
Could I put some quiet in the chambers, please?
I'm just wondering, in regards to what was just moved, whether council needs to make it clear exactly why the deferment was made.
Deferred to have a further report.
We could add to it if it was consent of the council. Yeah, possibly. Further report addressing all the issues raised by councillors. Yeah. With a view to referring the matter for it to be assessed externally.
And just through you, Mr Mayor, sorry.
Yeah, with a view to...
Sorry, through the chair, in relation to referrals, that's an action for council separately. I don't think that's been considered. I think the way I heard the deferral was that to defer the report, and that the request, just to put a bit more context to that, was that it was about addressing all the matters that council has raised, not seeking another action.
No, that's not what I moved initially. I moved that they said a further report come back with a view to
referral. That's what I've got written here, referral written here. hand over to the General Manager.
Just through the chair, did we have a staff recognition? Not staff recognition, a community recognition scheme report, or we've dealt with that.
They did that as they went round. They did that as they went round. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. My apologies, councillors. Look, through the chair, I'm just raising a number of items for you. It has been brought to my attention because you have your annual report, which is our report card back to the community around the delivery plan that we've agreed to and endorsed as a council going forward. That there are a number of errors just sitting around the councillor representation on the committees. We'll fix that up for you. If there's any other issues or any errors that you see in the document, by all means, please, bring them to my attention and we'll resolve that straight away. The annual report is a really critical document, though. It does talk about the activities of council and it does highlight them. It includes a lot of relevant information from the community's perspective, and council works to an outline that's been provided to us from the Office of Local Government. Thank you.
Councillors, the report's there. Question, Councillor Tuckerman.
Just in regards to what was presented in regards to the annual report, I actually have a lot of concerns about what's in it and the structure of it. There appears to be quite a few mistakes, so I'm not sure how to handle it, whether you want us to go through the whole thing or whether we go into the committee of the whole to discuss some of those issues. I'm not sure.
One thing I will say is if we are going to have a discussion like previous, we will go into council committee because we need to get some processes in place. So if you'd like to move that way, then
I'll move the way that we go into the committee of the whole. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Tuckerman, second to Councillor Wallace. Thank you. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you.
I just need to speak on something there. On page 85.
We've moved into a committee of the whole. Would you like Councillor Tuckerman to continue first?
Yeah, sure.
And then Councillor Tuckerman.
So, first of all, obviously, the issues around the representation on committees, they weren't noted correctly and there was lots of information missing about who was on the committees. There's just so many. I don't know where to start. First question I want to ask, in regards to the annual report and the audit financial reports, are they going to be presented before they go to the Office of Local Government to Council?
Through the chair, yes. Yes, they are. They are actually coming to council. First, they need to in order to be audited.
Sent to audit.
Sent to audit, so apologies. Yes.
When will that be?
Through the chair, that's December the 12th. December the 12th, yes.
Okay. In regards to some of the items, 1.5551, we talk about increased participation by young people in civic duties. I think there's a lot more examples that probably could be put in there. For instance, council's support and assistance to the activities of the Borough Education Foundation Pig Push. The school captains of Borough actually MC the Australia Day ceremony. There's a youth ambassador selected from the Borough community to introduce the Australia Day ambassador. So there's lots of little things that I think are missing in that regard as to what council is doing, and I think this report's really important that we highlight everything that is going on. There was 5.223. There's a number of village meetings that have been occurring in regards to consultation with the community. I think that should be highlighted. The amount of time that we've spent in the villages listening to our community. 5.374, it talks about supporting emergency services. Council does a lot of support of emergency services, not just paying the financial contributions to the emergency services, but council attend road accidents, and fire incidents, flooding incidents, all emergency services, and make a contribution to that. So it should be noted of what council staff are actually providing. In 5.341 it talks about high performance, and it talks about it starting, but I think it's already started. I think it might have been just referred from last year's annual report. It's actually currently happening in regards to staff performance and strategic direction. 5.3.46, it talks about audit review and WHS matters by state cover, and it was supposed to have occurred in October 2018. Has that occurred? It has occurred, so it's not reflected in the annual report. So, okay, right, gotcha. Rightio. Rightio, understand. And also, as we go down the page, there seems to be a misalignment with. You talk about identified non-compliance gaps to be addressed after the audit, but there seems to be a gap there and it's all misaligned, and it talks about the view, and that's how we're addressing it, the community newsletter. So that's on page
3.5.4.6.
Yeah, so page 35. You'll see there's a gap, but nothing aligns with regards to...
Yep.
You with me? In regards to the capital works summary, page 52, just a spelling mistake in regards to process and progress. And on the pages, you talk about, there seems to be some misalignment with staff, and then it goes on to the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, and then back to staff. Under property and Crown lands, we then go on to Stronger Community Project updates. I think just needs to be reviewed. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. I'll go to Councillor Horton for commentary.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 85, councillors' attendances. There are a couple of typographical errors there for Councillor Horton. Ordinary meetings, I've attended 8, not 6, 8 out of 8. And extraordinary council meetings, I've attended 2 out of 2, not 1.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'll throw to Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Put your mic on, Councillor Armstrong, please.
Thank you very much. Following on from Councillor Tuckerman's this there, I note that an item a little bit later on in the business paper, but I refer to item 5.2.4.1 that references the customer service policy, providing a guideline for the time frame. We don't seem to have a customer service policy, so I don't know how effective that outcome is there. And 5.2.4.2, a draft customer service policy has been developed and will be implemented. If a draft customer service policy has been developed and be implemented, why are we going out to contract?
I think it was written before the last council meeting.
I suggest that probably needs to be nil.
And Mr Mayor, just in regards to the customer service policy, The default policy is the previous young council's policy until a new policy is passed.
Thank you. Look, I'm not going to go into the report. I mentioned my concerns to the General Manager earlier, and it was pointed out to me the very first line on the report where it said committees, and it has there's only two of us on the committee, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Ingram, but all of a sudden Councillor Horton, God bless him, he was on there. So, you know, I looked at that when it was pointed out to me. I said, that scares me just about the rest of the report. But anyway, we know it needs to be addressed. So.
I have one other question. On page 13 of the report, there's reference to telephone calls made by councillors for $2,057.68. Can I get details of those telephone accounts for telephone calls, please?
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, for leading me into that. I asked the exact same question to the Director of Corporate and Community when I spotted that, because of one reason that is well known in the room. There's only one councillor with a phone, and that would be the Mayor. And I can assure you the Mayor hasn't made $36 worth of phone calls, let alone $2,000 worth of phone calls. So when I inquired about it, that amount includes data for all councillors. So as been suggested to me, that maybe that we should be in that wording, that this is for phone costs and data supply rather than just phone calls, because that, to the public, they were to say, how many phones have you got? One. That sits with the Mayor.
So I suppose my question to you, Mr Mayor, is that if you've made under $40 worth of telephone call, to report to the community that councillors have made in excess of $2,000 worth of telephone calls is highly spurious.
It could be construed that way, Councillor Armstrong, yes.
So that should be data, you're telling me? Yeah. Can I suggest that should be made data?
Yes. Thank you. Yep.
Mr Mayor, if I just have, it's on towards the very end, the habitat revegetation, it's page 74 of the report, but it seems in that the South East Local Land Service has been consulted into their works in the area, but I don't know if any contact's been made with Riverina LS as to what they've been doing and what they've done, because there's no reference to it. So I think they should be consulted and findings reported as well.
Anyone? Councillor Flannery.
Mr Mayor, my comment would be in relation to this report and indeed the whole business paper, as my view is that if councillors are to read the whole business paper, I believe staff should all read the whole business paper. For a long time now, it simply isn't acceptable for staff to lodge their reports to the business paper and not know what's going on in council, and I think if there's an expectation of us to be up to speed, there's an expectation by us for staff to be up to speed.
I think you'll find most in the room here would concur with you, Councillor Flannery. So, councillors, look, we've been around the room about this report, and just before we come out of committee, are we understanding of Councillor Walker, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, just one more comment, and it might be just my ignorance. Page 56, the funding, is it 365 funding or is it 356 funding?
355.
355.
356.
356. So that's a transposition.
Okay, councillor, so when we come out of committee, have we got an idea? This recommendation clearly isn't going to stand that we endorse the report as it is, so we will have to have something moved in regard to that matter when we come out. So just be aware of that, if someone's ready. So would someone like to bring us out of committee? Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Councillors, we've got the report in front of us and the recommendations there. Do I have any recommendations?
I'll move that this report be brought back to council for the December meeting, Mr Mayor. Sorry, with the correction.
Okay, just wait then, we'll get that down with Deirdre.
I'm happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Tuckman, thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr Mayor, just with the permission of the mover and second of the motion, can I suggest that perhaps should be brought back to the December meeting of council with corrections and the financials?
Through the chair. Yeah. Yes, yeah, a complete document.
They won't be audited.
That's another matter. So we've got the mover and seconder there. It's on the board. All those in favour? Again? Thank you, so be it. Thank you. Item 18, 261.
So moved.
Moved Councillor Walker. We have a
Yes.
second to Councillor Manchester. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Item 18, 262, the Stronger Communities and Stronger Country Communities Projects Update. And the recommendation is there, Council.
Move the recommendation, Mr Chair.
Moved Councillor Manchester. Seconded Councillor O'Connor, thank you. There's no questions, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again, so be it, thank you. 18263 is the Model Code of Conduct Complaints Statutory Report. There, councillors, and the recommendations there.
I'll move it with a question, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor Wallace. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Manchester. Question, Councillor Wallace.
The one unresolved matter, is that any closer to us coming to a resolution?
It's been referred back to the Office of Local Government as per the procedure.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I was wondering if you've heard anything since that time.
No, I haven't.
What's the likely time frame?
I'm in the hands of the Office of Local Government.
Could we give them a shake-up, please?
We have been in contact with them, and I did ask them to get back to the council as expeditiously as possible.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Wallace. So we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? So be it. 18264 is the tabling of pecuniary interest returns, and the recommendation is there.
Move, Mr Chair.
Moved Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Thank you, so be it. 18265 is a change to the Stronger Communities Fund project for the Young Lions Soccer Club. The report is there in front of us, Council, and the letter from the Young Lions Soccer Club, and the recommendation is there. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Rolls.
Question?
Question, Councillor Walker.
I notice this has been noted in the Young Sports Committee report. Are they referred to on this matter?
They most certainly are. The meetings I've attended, the soccer club take a prominent role in that meeting. Yep.
Well, should I go to them first?
I would suggest to you that it's been discussed with that group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had a mover and a seconder, did I? Yep, I did. All those in favour?
That's not the committee.
So be it. Thank you. 18266 is the cash investments as of 31st of October. The report is there and the recommendation. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Any questions or debate? I'll move that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. 18267 is the quarterly budget review statement. It's there, councillors, in front of you again, and the recommendation. Moved Councillor Tuckerman, thank you. Seconded Councillor Wallace? No, not seconded. They've got it moved by Councillor Tuckerman.
I'll second it.
Seconded Councillor Flannery. Do you have questions or debate in regard to the matter, or Councillor Walker, could you please turn your microphone off, please?
My apologies.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, just a small matter, Mr Mayor, but the nomination of a $50,000 figure for the customer service policy, I don't know when Councillor Armstrong moved to have this outsourced, whether that was the type of figure he was envisaging. To me, it sounds like a customer disservice, because if we're spending $50,000 to get this done, we are just wasting ratepayer money. I would support this motion if that figure was reduced to half.
Councillor Armstrong.
Mr Mayor, I'd support the position of Councillor Wallace, but I'd also suggest the one below it perhaps is overly generous too. I'd suggest that perhaps 50,000 for the two of them might be more realistic.
Didn't speak.
The IT one is
one that was asked for as part of the audit. I have had two done at previous organisations that I worked at. One was 80,000 and one was 40,000. So I just, it is an estimate. We haven't gone out to tender for the work yet. So I'm happy to halve it, but I don't know that you'll get the work done for that.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Flannery.
As to the cost, I think once you get a consultant in, it's about 10,000 as soon as you open the door. Customer service is, by and large, I would have thought common sense. And common sense isn't, as I am aware of a specific instance, leaving a trainee, no, an apprentice in charge of two trainees at the front desk of young Offerton. And I believe a councillor either made a call or then asked the apprentice what was going on. The trainee didn't know where to look, wander or find, and certainly the then trainees didn't know. So for us to spend 50,000 on this when a senior staff person shouldn't have actually left that apprentice in charge of trainees in the first place, I'd rather actually spend it on some hard training of people who are put in charge of the office, or actually a retirement package.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. So we'll go back to the recommendation that there, and it's been spoken that I'm taking from Councillor Wallace that he'd be this recommendation if that number was amended for that customer service policy. Do I ask for someone to make an amendment that way, or how will we deal with this staff? I'm looking for guidance.
Yep. Certainly through the Chair, this is a quarterly budget review. You have the power to adjust those figures downward. It's simply as simple as adjusting those figures downward and moving the report.
Does that need to be noted as a .4 then to that recommendation? It's up there? Okay, thank you. I've got no...
Mr Mayor, can I just ask...
Make it 20,000. I think it'll be adequate.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question
Yep.
where the $50,000 estimate came from?
So I made an estimate of that because you asked for you asked for community consultation in the review. You also asked for a new policy to be worked through. So I had to come up with something. So, you know, I'll do the work that fits the budget, but my understanding of what you asked for was that you wanted community consultation on the customer services strategy and policy.
From my understanding, we're getting feedback from the community about our customer service, the lack of it. So that it needs to be addressed, and I tend to agree with Councillor Flannery. So we've got the .4 there for the recommendation. If the mover and the seconder are happy with that, or Councillor Armstrong.
Can I make a suggestion that they both be halved?
We've got another discussion happening again. Councillor Armstrong has asked that both those numbers be halved.
With the indulgence of the mover and the seconder.
With the indulgence of the mover and the seconder. The mover and the seconder happy for that to happen?
We're actually solving the problem. We're not solving the problem. Yeah.
Councillors, we need to address the recommendations that's there, or I'll go into committee again, but we're speaking for and against amendments. We need to work out what we're going to put up as a recommendation. Through the mover.
I'm happy to accept the changes to the previous motion.
Thank you very much. So the mover, the second, is happy to take the recommendation that is stated on the board now.
Mr Mayor, just while that's going up on the board, I think an explanation, given we're live streaming and this is a budget review, some explanation of why there was an estimate, just some of these key changes to the general public, I think is noteworthy. We've got an estimated cash and receivables equivalent starting position, June 30 of 52 million, now we're 21 million. I mean, I personally don't think it's acceptable for us to just vote through a document where there's no explanation why there's a $30,000 million change in cash equivalents while we're voting through some of these changes. Now, we go through workshops, or we know from previous experience on council what some of the changes are. Some of the notes explain the documents, but I actually believe some of these more than significant variations need explaining by the either director or responsible person to give a very brief rundown on why there are significant changes to the budget, even if they're revotes. It's the first time we've had live streaming since these reports have come up, and I think an explanation rather than councils wantonly just voting through changes as though we don't care.
On that note, Councillor Flannery, have you got a question you would like to ask the Financial Officer, or would you like to...
I'd like an explanation of the $30 million change in cash equivalents from the estimate to projected end-of-year result. And there are notes to explain, but there's $1.6 million of grants and operating contributions that is being amended. By and large, the rollovers and revotes, if a brief explanation could be given to them.
Could I have the Chief Financial Officer respond to those questions, please?
I'll address the cash issue first. The 52,000 in the estimate column, it was the estimate, is the updated estimate of what we expect at the end of 2018. It's not this expected figure at the end of 19. So the changes are from the 35 million down to 21 million. The estimate of 52 million has increased by the 9.5 million that we've asked to be revoted. Those funds were already allocated in the previous period, and we're just asking if we can bring those funds forward to complete some works that aren't completed, and or to bring works forward that are required to be done that haven't been started. The additional $4 million are again our original estimate for 2018 now includes an additional $4 million worth of income in advance payments for FAGs that we hadn't expected. So again, that estimate 2018 figure jumps up and it reduces our end of. If we went back to our original budget documents way back, there's not much difference in that expected cash figure at the end. Does that answer your question, Councillor Flannery?
An explanation also of the 1.6 million that's a revote, or I think it's an extra grant funding received. There's materials and contracts have increased by 1.7 million or thereabouts. I assume that's in relation to increased expenditure for...
So the increase in the material and contracts, it's 1.7 is the merger implementation money. I've put it into materials and contracts because I don't know what the mix of wages and materials will be. That may change from one to the other, but that's what that increase is in that area. And additionally, the 2.3 in the revised addition is the additional merger funds that were allocated again in this financial year that we weren't aware of at the time. And again, they're in materials and contracts because I'm not sure what the split will be to wages.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions?
Just one observation. At the top of the each page it says
microphone, please, Councillor Armstrong.
At the top of the quarterly budget review statement for the quarter ended 30 September 2019.
Tom's fine, sorry. I'll correct that.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, any other questions while we've got the CFO sitting at the table? Councillor Flannery.
Just on the revotes, it's revoting Burra Showground money, Burrangong Bridge. I would have thought some of that money had been spent by now, so it's been expended.
At the 30th of June, so at the 30th of June, the majority of that funding has been spent, especially in relation to the showground, it has been spent to bring the budget forward to spend. So I had to incorporate that in. This report should have been provided earlier, the revote report.
Thank you for that. Okay, councillor, so we've had them questions answered. We've got the recommendation in front of us with the dot point 4 still there sitting on behind it. The mover and the seconder were happy for that.
Put a dot point 5 for the information technology audit.
Was the customer service policy supposed to be 25 as well, councillor? Is that what you were intending?
I'll reduce it further.
Right, okay. Well, I'm happy to...
Thank you. That's the mover and the seconder. Happy with that? All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you, councillors. And thank you, Chief Financial Officer. 18268's been dealt with. 18269, submission of draft urban design for regional New South Wales. Councillors, the report's there in front of you, and the recommendation is there. Moved Councillor Walker, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. All those in favour? So be it. Thank you. 18270, Hilltops Local Environmental Plan Project, Progress Report November 2018, Director of Sustainable Growth. Do we want someone to speak to it? Councillors? Recommendations there.
I move with Councillor Armstrong providing that commentary.
Councillor Flannery moved. Councillor Rolls seconded. Any questions? No questions? No talk? I'll put the recommendation.
This in regards to the LEP review. There will be 3 reports coming back to council very soon. The 3 very important reports that will fuel a very large part of the review, the rural land review. The transport review will be a little bit later, but we're hoping to get those sooner. What the committee would like to do is to organise a full workshop for council, so as council can get across the 3 reports. Now, there will be a huge amount of information coming in these reports, and there will be some complex issues that will need to be across. I think it's appropriate that we have at least one good session in getting across them, so as we can come back to staff and the consultants with any concerns or questions that we have before we go to the community. Because the next step for us will be to push these documents back out to the community for even further community feedback and engagement. To that end, the committees would like to thank the Director and the council officers involved with the production of these reports, and we'll certainly encourage all councillors to make themselves available at this particular stage in February for that workshop. It's our intention to have the workshop and then potentially come back to council with the reports in March, if we can.
Thank you very much for that update, Councillor Armstrong. Much appreciated.
Has that date been identified?
In February,
No, there was
no.
I think we were considering the sort of usual council workshop, but it will be subject. It's foreshadowed that the reports will be back from the consultant late January, so we are a little bit subject to them meeting that time frame. But I think Councillor Armstrong has done a good job chairing the committee, and we're very keen to give councillors maximum time to look at these reports before we don't want them going on public display before we're happy that all the issues have been dealt with. And it's very important that we as councillors avail ourselves of the time needed to consider them and perhaps put them back to the consultants if we're not happy.
Thank you for that, Councillor Flannery, and we all are well aware of just how important this is, that process will be, so I'm sure all councillors will be on board with that. Having said that, the recommendations there. I've had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Yeah, so be it. Thank you. 18271, biosecurity functions. Report's there, and the recommendation to endorse the report. Councillors?
I'll move the report.
Moved Councillor Plenary.
Second, Mr Chair.
Seconded Councillor Manchester. Question, debate?
Mr Mayor, as I probably have alluded to in past council meetings, I find the whole function of the Weeds Committee moving into council and the progress or lack of progress and lack of staff since that has occurred to be totally unsatisfactory. We've had very good employees leave as a result of the lack of, I guess, correspondence or understanding as to where they sit, and I as a councillor haven't really understood what their delegation is now. I believe this report has some good recommendations to it. However, I'm concerned about some of the recommendations, such as moving the Weeds Committee from the Boorowa office to Harden. I actually think I understand that General Counsel may be split into separate divisions, being operational and delegation, but I don't know that that's how the Weeds Committee works, and I don't know that that will work well under this proposed change. By and large, many of the officers or some of the officers perform the same role. Whether they, I think this needs further work and further discussion. It's gone from having a Weeds Committee that was an amalgam of all the councils to then Harden, the Hilltops and Yass Shires. Hilltops have removed their presence or delegation or whatever you might want to call it. We were still, the proposal was that we would still have a Weeds Committee, and I envisaged that would become a 355 committee. We were due to meet earlier in this month, and without any discussion, in fact I received a phone call from a staff member asking what my concerns were as the former committee chair, and advised that the meeting would be proceeding, I think it was on the 2nd of November, and the next thing I just received a council meeting notice by email and no explanation. The relevant director, I sent an email requesting an explanation. The director was on holidays. I gather now the whole committee's been disbanded. There's no discussion as to whether it should be set up as a 355 committee. I'm getting numerous complaints from farmers that weeds are not being sprayed. I mean, this report alludes to the fact that the program or process now is to fight new and emerging weeds. Well, I would have to say if we continue down this path, every new and emerging weed will become an endemic weed, and then the list will roll on. I mean, there is St John's wort from one end of our shire to the other. Roadside spraying didn't occur when the weeds were in their infancy. We basically sprayed them when they were in seed. Total waste of money. Might as well have not bothered. We simply did it because that was the function. I gather we were trying to either train up staff or work a program out, and I really feel sorry for those who are left as part of the former Weeds Committee, because they are totally dissatisfied with what's going on, and I don't believe this report adequately addresses the best way forward. So having moved the report...
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Having moved the report and it's for information purposes only, I get the understanding and the feeling that you would like some more work done with this area. So would that be correct?
Certainly before the recommendation is adopted of separating the roles.
As I said, the recommendation is there to endorse the report for information purposes only, so if there's more work needs to be done with it, that will be the case. Councillor Tuckerman, speak.
Mr Mayor, I'm absolutely flabbergasted at what's being proposed. I do not understand why if Council has endorsed a Section 355 committee, that it has been disbanded.
Yeah, by email. I have been getting phone calls from ratepayers in our shire in regards to the St John's wort
incursion currently all over our road network. This is a priority and needs to be addressed as a priority. And for 1 minute, if you think I'm going to sit here and endorse that the weeds be moved to, I'm sorry, but there'll be lots of words to be said about that.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman, and that's understandable. So,
Do you want me to provide a result?
well, the recommendation is that Council endorse the report for information purposes. Now, it's quite obvious in the room that there's some discontent about just what's in the report, so whether you want to endorse this for information and go back and revisit this and do a lot of work with it, or how would you like this to be handled, staff? I'm seeking guidance.
Just through the chair, there's just some statements that have been made that around the Section 355 committee that are a little puzzling. Is the weeds is actually us. We don't need a Section 355 committee to run ourselves. It is really a case of saying, what is the function of that committee, and does it need broader representation outside of council? We can do that without being a Section 355. We can have an operational committee from a governance perspective. It's really what is the aim of the Section 355. The movement of staff is really around and addressing issues around complaints that offices are empty, and we have a range of functions that we can run at council from any of our real estate, and it's really trying to address, I guess, a broader perception by the community that there's a lack of services, across Burra and Harden. You have two aspects to all weeds operation, and that is the inspectorial aspect and there's the spraying aspect. They don't have to be together. But we would suggest that it is good practice to put all of your inspectors together so that they can actually not only work well together but provide increased capacity. Whilst certainly the number of employees that we took on at the transfer of the weeds organisation as it came into council after the 1st of July 2017 had a certain number. The exit of YAS meant that 25% of those staff and assets were removed from that authority. And so we have a smaller organisation after a number of staff movements for a range of reasons, not staff dissatisfaction, but long service and staff health and retirement. That cohort was significantly smaller, and we've been recruiting for some time for that. We have built that capacity back up again in recent weeks, and we can address the weeds issue. The weeds issue could not be addressed in its entirety because we were in drought, and there is little point using chemical on dry vegetation because it can't be uptaken and it doesn't do the job that it's needed. So there's a range of reasons as to why the activity of council around weed weed spraying is lower than normal, but certainly now that there is moisture around, that can pick up, and the important thing there is that we have the capacity to do so, and we do have that capacity now. That said, in relation to using our real estate and putting functions of council in different areas, we need to start thinking about that, and that certainly is mooted as part of the report.
In regards to the staffing numbers at Burra, though, how does that fit with the Act?
Through the chair, because the entity came across to us after proclamation, we're not under those restrictions. We still have to be careful in relation to the Local Government Act of watching numbers overall in both those branches in relation to all of our activities. So it is still a case of ensuring that the council structure sits at minimum levels, especially in those communities where there are 5,000 or less. We certainly acknowledge that. We're not trying to reduce the capacity of the council. We're actually
Thank you for that explanation, General Manager. However, I actually disagree with a lot of the statements. I disagree that it was too dry to spray earlier in the year. We are understaffed. There is staff dissatisfaction. They're not allowed to speak, or they're not supposed to speak to councillors while they're employed, but when they leave, they can tell you exactly how they feel. And they do. They very clearly do, and a lot of them are dissatisfied. There were casual employees alluded to in this.
We might just be cautious around
There were casual employees alluded to in this report who were desperately wanting a full-time job, and we didn't offer them the work. It says that in the report, financial implications of proposed changes do not have a direct financial impact on the council. Having been on the Weeds Committee for a number of years and having relied heavily on contract spraying to meet a financial deficit, having relied heavily on contract spraying to remove noxious weeds to alleviate a financial deficit, I would say that this restructure will actually have a negative financial impact on the council.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. There's obviously some grave concerns around the weeds area, and has been for some time, with how the situation changed from how it was dealt with before to where it lands in Hilltops Council now. So I would suggest there would be a lot more work needs to be done to it from what I'm hearing from around the table. So I had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that sits there.
Councillor Horton. Mr Mayor, just direct this to the General Manager. I was on the noxious plants southwest slopes with Councillor Flannery. I would have thought that Harden is a good spot to have as a base because it's pretty well central, isn't it, to the whole council area? Wouldn't that be advantageous to have that there rather than anywhere else? I mean, that's where the real fire headquarters is going to be because it's central. Just an observation.
Okay, thank you for that observation. This item's had around the table. So the recommendation's had a mover and a second. I'm going to put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18272, development application stats for October 2018. They're there for council, and the recommendation is there.
Move the recommendation, Mr Chair.
Move Councillor Manchester, thank you. Seconded Councillor O'Connor. Question, Councillor Armstrong.
How many objections do we need to get before a DA comes to council? How many objections do we need lodged before a DA comes to council?
Through the chair, I'll just ask the through the chair, I'm getting a sign that there's 4. Through the chair, I understand the question. Apologies. In relation to a matter being referred to council, it's more than 4 submissions need to be received in order for a matter to be referred to council. Sorry, yes.
If council notifies less than 4, if council notifies 4 potential owners, does that then mean that there is no chance of if an objection is received from those 4 owners, there is no chance of that matter coming to council?
Through the chair, I will defer to the Director of Sustainable Development.
So, through the chair, where submissions are received that can't be resolved, substantial submissions that can't be resolved, where there are more than 4 received, it gets referred to council, and where they can't be resolved, we usually refer them up to council for resolution. So.
If there are 4 potential objectors, how would that matter ever be referred to council? If the maximum number of objectors that could lodge objections be notified was less than 5, how could those objectors be granted the same rights and the same opportunity as if they were 1 extra?
I understand what you're saying. As a general principle, where we can't resolve those submissions, irrespective of the number, we will put them to council. So we make every effort to resolve the issue between and reach a reasonable compromise solution, and where we can't, we'll put the report to council for determination.
even if there's only one objection.
That if we're talking more about microphones on, please. Yep.
Yes, I'll bring it to the attention of the General Manager rather than here now.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question when that and where that policy was developed in regards to only 4?
Through the Chair, it's under general delegations around which DAs can be endorsed in-house, approved in-house, and so there's a framework that sits around that, a delegation framework, and it has an arbitrary number of submissions as part of that framework.
Thank you for that. Okay, if there's no questions about a mover and a second, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. Item 18.273, NRMA electric vehicle charge points. The report there, a couple of photos, councillors. It's been moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor O'Connor.
Quite to speak to that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, look, I support it, I suppose, but I do have some difficulty with this because I just think we're supporting a commercial enterprise and it's precluding other people from entering the market because we're giving the NRMA a leg up. But they wouldn't do it in the city because the parking spot costs would be too expensive, I imagine.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Whilst I'm in favour of the use of electric vehicles, I'm not necessarily in favour of council subsidising the suppliers of or recharge stations for those things, unless council owns the recharge station, and the benefit of that comes back to profit for council and then the community. In this instance, I'm actually in favour of the principle. I think that the location for Young is a very poor selection, and I believe that a better location would be up in the parking lot at in the council-owned parking lot at the railway station, not upon the land owned by the State Rail. I base that opinion on the fact that both these parcels of land to be closed for at least one day a year, which will be Cherry Festival, that they are both high profile, that they are both located very closely to tourism facilities and the commercial sector of the CBD. However, in the instance of the car park at the back of the town hall, to install $100,000 worth of car charging station in there would potentially limit council if council was to wish to use that area for buildings in the future. The last thing I want to see is something as advantageous as a charging point incur a cost on the ratepayers if the ratepayers were to go ahead with some other project there. So I'd suggest, if it's all right, to put one in the public road at Burrawa and at Galong and potentially at Harden, that there is probably some public road that it could go in Young if it couldn't go at the council-owned car park at the railway tourist office.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, for that. Councillor Flannery, I think, to comment?
Mr Mayor, look, I concur with Councillor Wallace. But should we be providing the car parks, it should be just listed as a contribution. I think wherever council makes, it's not for free. It should be listed in our financial statements as contributions.
Yep, I tend to agree with everyone that spoke, and I'm just reading the recommendation again, and the recommendation is that the General Manager continue to work with the NRMA about this matter and adopt some arrangements. So, giving the sentiment that's around the room, I'm pretty sure staff have taken that on board, I hope, and they would think about that when they start dealing with NRMA in regard to these points as advantageous and as exciting as electric cars are. So, having said that, I had a mover and a seconder, and we're happy to put the resolution. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, so be it. Thank you. And just go back on that point, make sure that the staff are aware of those comments that have been made about especially about the locations. 18274, disaster recovery funding arrangements. Thoughts there, councillors, and the recommendations there for you.
Mr Mayor, I'll move the recommendation. I've got comments.
We had a mover and I got a second to Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
I've got comments. Whoever wrote this report might have written the annual report too, because I think there's a number of typos, and without going through every single one, I think primary is meant to be primarily on page 1. There's typos all through it, which makes for pretty ordinary reading. And I did struggle to get my head around some of the actual scenarios, other than I gather option 1 is the preferred option. The where we can charge for our own labour hire and plant hire.
Yes. Look, at the moment with the current arrangements, we can't actually can't actually do the work in normal working hours, and we can't actually charge for all of our labour. What changes with this current arrangement, if the status quo was to continue, we wouldn't even be able to recover our plant hire costs at all. So we're being forced into a situation where going to the alternative scenario, we can actually do the work, but it's going to cost us more in terms of the initial contribution we make when we have a claim against the disaster fund, and that's where the scenarios are showing in the pages 200 and 201.
Okay, any other comments in regard to that matter? If not, I've had a mover and a seconder. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, so vote. Thank you. Item 18275, update on Cherry Capital Building. Report there, council, and there's a recommendation there. I've had it moved by Councillor Horton. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Manchester seconded. Would anyone like to speak to it? If not, I will. In regard to this item and the $300,000 that was spoke about, and there's a bit of confusion. There could be the $300,000. The original $300,000 was put aside before for to do with some asbestos in the roof, and then it comes along again. Now it's $300,000, and I'm presuming it's the same $300,000. I don't know, but to upgrade that building upstairs for the potential incubator hub.
The same 300.
I think it's the same.
Well, that's good to know then, because it mentioned twice. I've been dealing with this incubator hub committee with Councillor Rolls for a substantial time now. I've got a couple of issues. One is about the capability of the incubator hub to be created, to get going. There doesn't seem to be the interest that needs to be there for me. The other worry I have is $300,000 going on the costings of every other project we've touched will go nowhere near what would need to be done to bring that building up, the top floor, up to date for someone to use. I personally think that $1,000 needs to be put back where it was and to be reused. I think it's a folly to think that $300,000 will create anything near what is needed for anyone to occupy the top of that building, if there was actually a need for it. The last two incubator hub meetings that I attended and chaired, there was still a number of agency people around the table, but at both those meetings there's only been one business person at each meeting. I have another one of those meetings coming up in 2 weeks, I think. Councillor Rolls and I spoke about this and about the desire that was there very early doesn't seem to be there now, whether it's people are overcommitted and just too busy to stay engaged with it. The concept is really good and was exciting for people involved in that area, and still weighing through their own businesses and how they've been carrying their lifestyle. So I think the time has come for me personally for this $300,000 to be put back where it was, that it may be used somewhere else. I think we need to go away from doing anything. If the roof in that building, and I've had contradicting stories about what needs to be done to it, needs to be addressed, then it needs to be addressed. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't, and the $300,000 can go back where it came from and be used elsewhere. But I think for council to keep continuing to talk about spending this $300,000 to upgrade the top of that building for another project, them days are over. Having said that, I believe there's another option maybe available for that incubator space by leasing some shopfront maybe in the near future if it was to be sit well with council on a basis of a short term to see if this incubator and joint use space could work. I believe that would be council to have something like that in place where if it wasn't to stand up after 12 months, you know, it wasn't going to cost council a considerable amount of money, whereas to outlay $300,000 and it's gone. And I don't think we'd get the value or the intended value that we need for that money. So I'm a bit long-winded, I know, but that's just my feelings on this item, and I'm open to the floor.
Mr Mayor, my understanding was, I know there was envisaged that the incubator hub might occupy that space, but I thought the money was going to go to doing it up because there may be, we can't let it as a commercial rental without doing something there. So that was my understanding. So, but maybe I'm wrong.
Through the chair, look, just talking about the roof, that roof was assessed and it doesn't need replacing at this point in time. And I believe at the time when this was discussed at the annual budget process, it was agreed that we would investigate looking at putting a lift in and providing access upstairs so that part of the building could be commercially rented out, whether it be for the incubator hub or somewhere else. The intention was that, subject to the council approval, that we proceed down the process of looking at the options for design to provide an access upstairs. And then report back with the results, and then that then gives you the opportunity to decide what you want to do from that point on. It means that you've got a design in the drawer. Should you want to go down that path in the future, if you want to do something now, then that's fine. If you don't, you can actually leave it until such time. But at least you've got options in terms of being able to consider what you want to do with the upstairs portion of that building. Because at the moment, you can't use it until such time as you've got access provided and some form of separation and those issues being done from a tenancy point of view.
Thank you for that, and I understand the point about doing it up to potentially for a tenant. My point is that I don't believe there are any tenants. I think we have enough shop fronts that are empty that would be more suitable than to someone to have a tenant upstairs with no street face above that building, but point taken. But that's just my commentary on that point, that I've had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, which states that note the status of the project and endorse engagement with businesses currently leasing the Cherry Capital building. So that's the recommendation. I've had a mover and a seconder. If I'll put that. If there's no more questions,
Mr Mayor, look, it's not a question or a comment, but noting that it's more likely than not we'll have to refurbish the existing young library, and although this money should be acquitted long before that's going to be built, we will need to somehow budget for that in the future. And if my understanding of the two buildings is any gauge, I would have thought the money might be better reserved for something such as that.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Flannery. That was the point that I was alluding to along them lines. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it.
Mr Mayor, I've got a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Armstrong.
Just in regard to the building. I note that the Acting Director has made the comment that the roof is adequate. Can the Acting Director assure me that there is no water ingress as a result of the failure of the roof or the condition of the roof?
Through you, Mr Chair. Look, as I've been informed from my staff, I believe that the roof is satisfactory at this point in time, and I don't believe there is any leaks at this stage. So that's the information I have been informed, but I'm happy to take that on notice and give you an update if that's required.
If you would, yes please. As a matter of urgency, given today's rainfall and the drought we're currently experiencing.
Thank you for that. Item 276 has been deferred. Pop over to item 18277, which is a...
Mr Mayor, do we need to formally resolve to defer that report?
We do. Thank you, Councillor Wallace, that we defer that report. Moved by Councillor Wallace, seconded by Councillor Horton. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor Wallace.
I haven't recorded that I didn't vote on that.
Yep. Councillor Flannery took no part in that motion to defer.
Was he declaring interest?
He declared interest at the start of the meeting. He did. Item 18. Yeah, too many 18s. 18277. It's the assessment on the bridges, and if someone would like to speak to that, I'm pretty sure there'll be questions around the room. So, Director, would you like to speak to it, or would you take questions?
Look, this report has been ready as a follow-up report from the previous one when we talked about the Wombonumber Bridge. As you can see in terms of the report, we've done the assessment of the other 3 bridges of the same format. The results of that are quite revealing in terms of Spring Creek Bridge is looking in a very similar sort of situation as the Wombonumber. It's not quite as bad, but it is showing considerable signs of deterioration and needs to be waitlisted. The other 2 bridges, HANNONS Bridge on Maringo Gap Road and the CUDGELL Creek bridges, are in much better condition, but then again they are still subject to the same potential deterioration based on the loading limits, and you'll note that on page 209 we're proposing low limits being provided for those. Staff in the time of this report being prepared have looked at alternative options for access for Spring Creek once the loading limits are imposed. And at the moment the 2 options have been highlighted in the report in terms of alternative routes. I have, as of today, had some very preliminary cost estimates provided as the likely costs for creating those bypass routes for the Spring Creek Bridge. In the case of the bypass option 1, which is to the Hardy's Road one, I think it's in the order of about $230,000 to make the changes, but it's not a particularly satisfactory option. The preferred option really is to develop a sidetrack between Spring Creek Road and the Glensroy Street, which would be in the order of about $200,000. So it's a similar sort of costing as we've done in the case of the Wombonumber Bridge. I'm not going to allow any heavy vehicles to go on that because it is almost as bad as the Wombonumber. The thing is, when you get actually underneath and have a look, you can see that the coming out of that industrial subdivision is in far worse condition than the path coming in, and you can see that with the cracks. Again, the flexural cracks are actually shear cracks, which means that any failure would be a catastrophic failure. Hence the reason why we need to do something about it ASAP. In the case of the other 2 bridges, the actual amount of traffic using that bridge, those 2 bridges, is much, and the frequency of heavy vehicles is much lower. So therefore, we can take a much more prudent approach in terms of allowing heavy vehicles. We're looking at a combination of options. One is a blanket option in terms of restriction of 20 tonnes GM. We're looking at special permits for the heavier vehicles that would be using that are accessing peccaries and the likes in that area, and then having specific axle restrictions on those. I think the biggest plus in that situation is that some of the bigger vehicles, because of the spacing of the pairs, allows clusters of axles to be on different and not actually having them on the same span at the same time, so it goes to give you a bit more flexibility. And saying that, we will need to have a strict inspection program put in place where we have detailed 3 monthly inspections put in place while we actually allowing those bridges to be used under those restrictions. We have made applications for all 4 bridges in terms of funding grants. We haven't heard anything at this point in time, but that's the best scenario. We have looked at the alternative access paths for both of those other sites, but I think at this stage, by working with the local businesses in the area that will need those heavy vehicles, I think we can actually come up with solutions that will largely allow them to operate without too many difficulties at the moment, but that's something we're working through with, and we've had some preliminary discussions with with the heavy transport regulator as well. So happy to answer any questions.
What's the time frame on
From my point of view, following this approval tonight, the intention is to start putting steps in place straight away. Particularly in the case of the Spring Creek Bridge, we need to go down the process of consulting with the local operators and starting to proceed with the construction of a bypass route and getting all those approvals done as quickly as we possibly can. Just need to monitor it and make sure we keep the public safe.
Thank you for that.
Just through, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just a question to the Director, Acting Director. This will mean routing of traffic down Glensloy Street, which will create a fair bit of turning action at the intersection of Glensloy Street and I'm just trying to think. Yeah, Mackenzie Street. That's only a two-coat seal. That's not asphaltic concrete. I'm expecting that there's going to be some significant degradation of the road surface there as a result of that turning moment, particularly coming out if these vehicles are loaded vehicles. Any proposal would need to include a request for funding to rehabilitate that intersection or the road surface at that point, I would think.
Through the Chair, look, at this stage we haven't looked at the details of that intersection. I think that's something that's going to have to be wait and see, and looking at how we can actually maintain that and keep it in as good a condition as we possibly can. That access is already being used by council vehicles now. I'm not sure what percentage increase there would be in terms of traffic loadings on that, but that's something we would need to consider.
Yeah, Councillor Flannery.
Mr. Mayor, question for the Director or Finance, I'm not too sure. The funding for the bypass, we're looking at a minimum of 200,000 plus other road work. Where will that be coming from? That's one question. The applications for funding for all 4 bridges, should we not be successful? Firstly, could you actually remind me of what the cost of the Wamba replacement is? Should we not be successful with one or all of the bridges, could we have a report to Council at the December meeting on what existing grant funding we may have been earmarked for that Council might vote over to these bridges? So are there other grants that we are likely to be in the receipt of that we might advise the Minister that a better path for that money might be towards these bridges? I'm sure there might be some funds better spent, and otherwise what internally restricted funds, such as from the plant replacement fund, that we might be able to revote. But in the main question at the moment is the funds for the bypass.
I can touch on the Fixing Country Roads. Ran 3 applications, and I spoke with our local member again today, briefly. Initially, I was told that we hadn't been successful when there was some announcements made about projects that were successful, and that annoyed me, but to say the least. But I have since spoke with a local member for Cootamundra in regard to the matter, who has advised me that all the applications that had a BCR greater than 1 and were costed at over $1 million were being re-looked at by the Department of Infrastructure, and our application met all those credentials and criteria. So I've been informed that they are being looked at as we speak, basically, and that there will be an announcement one way or another before Christmas in regard to the whether we're successful in getting any of that funding that we applied for in that application. So that's where that's sitting at the moment. It's been re-looked at by infrastructure. And I'm quite aware that Councillor Tuckerman on our behalf has also spoke to a member from Burrawa, as it is a bridge that affects all our communities, and I'm assured that both our state colleagues are pushing the barrow pretty hard for us, so we'll just have to wait and see the result of it.
In terms of the cost for the Wamba, it's in a similar sort of ballpark to the numbers here. I think it's about $2.5 or $2.6 million for memory. In terms of the questions as to repurposing some of the other grant funding, that's a much more difficult exercise because business cases have got to be put forward for each of those projects on a case-by-case basis, with benefit cost analysis being done, which allows those projects to be approved. So it's not quite as simple as being able to go back and make those changes. At this stage, the applications we've put forward for all of these bridges is on the basis of 100% funding. So that we're looking at them being fully funded at this point in time, rather than any contribution from council. Provision has been made in the case of the Wambanumba one for a sidetrack in the order of the $200,000. In the case of Spring Creek, a very small amount has been put forward, but it's nothing of that sort of magnitude, and that's something we would need to think about if we were to be approved.
You may have misspoken, but you actually said during your initial presentation that the Hardies Road by option would be $220,000. The sidetrack for Spring Creek would be $200,000. So we have $200,000 for Wambanumba Bridge. It sounds like you're correcting the figure for the Spring Creek Bridge, but we have a considerable amount of money that we have to revote from somewhere. In terms of the Wambanumba, $200,000 has been spent on the sidetrack. Provision was made in the application for the Wambanumba bridge funding for that sidetrack to be funded out of the project costs. In the case of the Spring Creek bridge, nothing of that sort of magnitude was provided. There was a small amount of money provided, but nothing of that sort of magnitude. I can't recall the specific amount. The actual sidetrack, as of today, would cost around the $200,000, but the alternative route to use Hardies Road is actually more expensive, which is around $220,000. The only difference is that if you were to use Hardies Road, you've actually got an asset that's there for longevity. Because you into the road, you're actually sealing a section which is gravel. You're actually doing some corner improvements and the likes, but it's actually not a particularly suitable road to use for the sort of heavy vehicles that are going in and out of that subdivision. That's the only benefit that is provided. When we made the application to fund the replacement of that bridge through Stronger Country Communities, we actually used the alternative bypass, which was Hardies Road, as the justification for the BC, because that was seen as being the only viable option that existed at that stage that had an existing road corridor, and that's one of the reasons why we've gone down that path of pricing that. And the sum of money was only to do some minor works, including sealing the small section of gravel, because at that stage we hadn't done any investigations and we had less than a week to put that application in. And looking at the bridge, now that I have the results of the load testing done on the Spring Creek Bridge, I can't see that the Hardies Road is as a viable option as putting in the sidetrack. The sidetrack was only considered as a last-minute option to try and address things and make it a bit more palatable for that and all those industrial users. We've still got to go through the process of getting environmental improvements and approvals and all those sort of things, and we're pushing this as quickly as we can. So to answer the question, we've funded the $200,000 out of our own funds, and we'll fund the other $200,000 out of our own funds, but we're putting an application in for grant funding.
In the case of the Wambanumba Bridge, we can actually recover some of those costs, if not all, through block funding. So that's one of the things we can do, but it just means something else drops off, and that's something that we have got in the back of our mind. However, we have made provision in the funding application for the recovery of those funds for the sidetrack on Wambanumba.
Through the Chair, in answer to your question, yes, it's coming out of operating maintenance and being reimbursed through grant funding. If that is not the case, if we don't get the maximum amount of grants, then obviously we have to look to our existing funding structure, roads R2R or something, and revote and rewrite some of that construction funding back into that particular bypass. I hope that's a little bit clearer, but at the moment it's just coming out of maintenance.
Just as a point, block grant funding is not council funding, it is actually reimbursable funded, so it wouldn't be council reserves, ultimately.
No, but it impacts what council does. Mr Mayor, could I make an addition or an amendment to the recommendation?
We haven't had a mover or seconder yet for that recommendation, so you can...
Could I add to the recommendation that council be provided with a report at the December meeting?
So, steady up.
Of what, if any, state and federal government funds we are currently in the receipt of. I use receipt in the broad sense of the word. That receipt of that council may seek approval to repurpose towards the bridge replacement. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, councillors, it's recommendation on the board's been moved by Councillor Flannery. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Manchester. No other questions or discussion? I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. So be it. I have a quick question before I move to the next item in regard to bridges. Only quickly, McHenry's Bridge. Can I have any? Is there any information about what's happening at McHenry Street?
Through the chair, this bridge is expected to be completed by Christmas time. The bridge beams were put on, I think, either last Friday or the Friday before, and the contractor is back on site doing the rest of the work.
Thank you. Okay. Item 18.278 is the Hilltops Works report. Report's there, councillors, and the recommendation is there.
I'll move it.
Move Councillor Flannery, second to Councillor Horton. Thank you. All those in favour?
Questions?
Councillor Flannery.
I note in the sealed road repairs there's nothing mentioned about... There has been substantial work on the Young to Burra or Burra-Maringo Road. It's not mentioned in this works report. Could we be provided with the cost of that works, including a cost of the gravel, which council has purchased for that work? I noticed that again on the Cunningar Road, and I'm not clear of my ability to ask questions on this, but there's been upgrades to intersections. I do note in a report that's flagged they may be further upgraded pursuant to a DA. Could we be provided with the cost of the work that's been carried out on the intersections of Cunningar Road and Galong Road and Cunningar Road, and I'm not too sure the road to Bynalong? Could we be provided with a report on the private contractor works on these, the extent of private contractor works on these roads as opposed to council work, please? I also note the Parks and Gardens maintenance for Southern is very limited throughout the report. And we still don't have a report on the irrigation system at Harden.
Seems that issue's been around for a long time. Yeah. Okay, so any other questions or comments in regard to that item? I've got a mover and a seconder. I'll put the report. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. 18.279 is the action summary report. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. No questions or comments? Or
one question.
Councillor Wallace?
At the last page of that report, item 18.355. Yep. I was just wondering if there's been any advice or contact received back in relation to that?
There was something received today, but I've only just briefly looked at it, so I can. It was sent to a conduct reviewer as per the procedures. So.
More shaking required.
Thank you for that. So I had a mover and a seconder for that. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Takes us to...
Just on that one, should that last one have been, the second last one show that our council was as completed?
Well, it says completed there. That's what's... I looked, I thought, well, it's completed, but then I've just heard the report that there's nothing to tell us, so I don't know.
Yeah, the referrals are completed. There'll be now another process.
Right, thank you.
I was the same, Councillor Flannery. Correspondence for action is nil. We move it for the Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again, thank you. Correspondence to be done. Council committee reports, and we have one for action. It's the GALONG Advancement Group. I'll hand over to who's ever in charge of from council or staff who wants to speak to that, if there's action to be done.
Sorry, we missed it. We had a workshop on Saturday.
So, in touch with the GALONG Advancement Group. So, there were some urgent repairs required, and they were carried out. I'll talk to the group about the setting of fees and how that goes about. The sewerage. So I wrote, there was an exchange of letters. I have, what happened was that the council was paying all of the sewerage, and it was paying for the new pump out at the campsite by accident. And so I said, look, council, all of the fees for the camping go to you, then you need to pay for the sewerage of that, pay out for the pumping of the sewerage. So I think they're okay about it, a bit grumbly, but I think where council doesn't actually get any of that revenue, then I think that it's unfair for council to pay for the pumping out of the sewerage. They've got some electrical problems. They've got problems with lights and things there, and so that just needs further investigation. Some of it's essential energy, some of it is the council. In terms of the Section 355, I'll have something coming to the council next time. The mowing contract, so there will be some advice coming to council on the mowing contract as well. The amount that council had budgeted for that is less than what the tender has been, so we need to bring that back to council.
Mr Mayor, a couple of questions. In relation to the campsite, look, it's I think we've got to have a serious look at it, whether this should be. It's a flood study done as part of the former Hardin Shire. It's a flood zone, clearly. We had a house repurchase policy in place, but it's being used as a campsite, and which is great for the village and great for the shops there, but I think we need to review the operation of it. It really is, it's like Nimbin there most weekends. It's got a great flow through. I just think we've got to review that as a council, make sure we're happy with how it's all operating. There's a in relation to the lawn mowing, my understanding from Hardin Shire was that all council villages were either provided with a lawn mower or provided with money to do the lawn mowing, and the committee actually conducted operation of the lawn mower and the various mowing. does Jugiong still have a mower as well as getting a contract paid for it?
Yes, it does. It gets money from the council to undertake that mowing, and so, but it's not enough for what needs to be done, is what they're telling us.
So what's the mower do?
The mower is used by the contractor.
They're actually paying for
it. From memory again, in relation to the shades sales, I was of the opinion, however, there certainly was money, in my view, voted towards these large shade sales. It may have been repurposed at some point, as is a common phrase, with $150,000 sitting in their kitty. And with an annual grant from council, I think we do need to look at how money is spent by villages.
I think most of the JEG money will be spent on the refurbishment of their kitchen. So I think the refurbishment of their kitchen was something like $123,000. In terms of the shade sale, the council took out 2 large trees which provided shade for the pool. Mrs. Coggan has contacted me today about what we are going to do about shade down there, and so I've asked the infrastructure guys to have a look at whether or not we can have some gazebos down there on a temporary basis for shade, and to get some large specimen trees actually replanted in that area, because there is just not a scrap of shade down there.
Look, it's probably too late, but is there any ability to check out whether funds were allocated towards shade previously? I wouldn't like to see, in fairness to all the other village committees, if money was provided for shade sales previously and it's now in a kitchen.
No, the money that they had is their own money that they've raised. So I don't know what the Hardin Shire had allocated, but there wasn't money, there hasn't been money for shade sales in our budget.
Okay, so the funding that they got from Steph Cook for the kitchen, they received funding for that? Am I correct there?
Yeah, that's correct, through you, Mr Mayor. So what I'm asking is this financial report in the draft minutes is $140,000. So that doesn't include the kitchen money, the grant allocated, I'm assuming. That this is their money.
Have they got it yet? I'm not sure.
I don't think they've had all of their grant money. I don't think it's all been acquitted. Yeah. So I think they...
So was the money for the kitchen given to the Jugiong Advancement Group to put in their bank?
No, they have to... It's that council to...
That's right. So this $150,000 is what they have
right.
in their balance.
And so a lot of the kitchen will be paid for by themselves, because not all of it was able to be got under the grant, as I understand, because they bought equipment, dishwashers, things like that, which couldn't be paid for out of the grant.
So, Mr Mayor, just in regards to these recommendations, so I thought we agreed that we'd put them in a format where council could make decisions on the recommendations put. So currently, at the moment, we've got 3 recommendations. Council remove poplar trees from the Riverside Drive. The sage shells at the swimming pool and the electricity upgrade.
Councillor Tuckerman, you took it clean out from what I had to say. Council committee reports for action, Jugiong Advancement Group, but it doesn't tell me what action that they're asking council to do. We've got a draft minutes here. They're draft minutes presented to us with, as Councillor Tuckman just pointed out, recommendation to council. If something's coming to council for action, for us to recommend and us to vote on, we need to have that in front of us, just what we are voting on and what are we talking about. We're not talking and condoning actions out of draft minutes. I don't believe that's appropriate for any of us to be doing that. This isn't basically good enough. If you want to have council committee reports come to council for action, bring them to council with the actions in the report by that committee that you want done, not a set of draft minutes for council to act on. I just don't think it swims, and what I'll be saying, yes, we'll accept all the council committee reports, but I'm not sanctioning any action out of those draft minutes tonight. And
can we note the request, Mr Mayor?
we can note the request. They're requested.
Then I'll move that way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong. Do I have a second to Councillor Armstrong's?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flannery. All those in favour? Again? Thank you. Sorry, we'll better wait till they get the word. And as for Councillor Flannery's comments about the camping, I have some concerns around some issues that there's an old saying that everything's fine until something happens, and I have a terrible concern that if something was to happen in that particular camping area, this council may have some questions to answer. I think it needs addressing, Councillor Flannery. You're quite right. We need to have a look at where our liability and our risk
If
is.
there is a flood, we need to know that the SES and everyone can actually evacuate that area. We have identified it as a flood
That's right.
zone.
Yep. It's on our, it is on our table.
That's well and good.
If we haven't, yep. So that's something else that can be looked at. So how we go? It's up on the board. Everyone happy with the way that's worded? We're going to move in a second. All those in favour? Again, thank you very much, councillors. So that brings us to closed council. Councillor O'Connor, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Horton, thank you. All those in favour? Again,